Hey everyone, welcome back. Part three. We've got Paul Coiltek and Guy, the Gold Rush guy, helping me chat about our new 18-inch Coiltek coil. Just happened to have one I prepared earlier. Look at the size of that. Doesn't
Oh,
even fit on the screen. Look at that.
it's massive.
Massive, it actually gets smaller back here, but it's
Yes,
pretty
that's
good
right.
here. So, but yeah, certainly it's a large coil for the Manticore detector. Release date is September 18th, 2024, which is coming up soon at the time we recorded this, but you may be watching this afterwards, which is fine. There's still plenty of tips and tricks, and we've got part one and part two that you can watch as well. And also, I'll be doing a few tech tips, and we'll get Paul and Guy and some of our other ambassadors around the world to do a few tech tips for us now and then, which will help us and help you, the viewers, understand how to use these big coils and some tips from people that are using them regularly. And so thanks for joining me, gentlemen, for part three
Thanks,
here.
Trev.
Thank you, thank you. And I just wanted to start off, we talked about, swinging the coil, why you would use a larger coil. We talked about some of your great finds that you guys have found already, which people can see on your YouTube. But one of the other things that people will be asking a lot about, which you don't have to tell in detail if you don't want, but settings. Um, the Manticore obviously has some settings that you can adjust and play with. So just for your general aspect, or if there's some settings you can share, what settings would you use, Paul, with a large coil like this? Is there any specific things that you can describe?
Yeah, well, I was a bit boring. I just tried to keep things as simple as I could without mucking around with the machine too much. As guys said before, that machine out of the box is a pretty decent, it's a
Yeah,
powerful unit.
yeah,
So I've just written down a few things here. I was just in all terrain general,
yep,
and I just kept everything else. I didn't touch anything else. The recovery speed, sorry, I had it on about between 4 and 5,
yes.
and the sensitivity was anywhere between, say, 25 and maybe 32. I ran a pretty hot
It's
a
pretty
few
hot, yeah.
times. Yeah, and it actually put up with it really easy. So that's all. There was no secret settings for myself. I just tried to keep it as simple as that. And I was popping coins and medallions, and I found a lovely couple of religious brooches, medallions, sorry, and some
Yep.
really good targets and finds. Just keeping things super simple. So that's all. That's all I got.
Yeah, no,
That's
that's
all I did.
perfect. I mean,
Yeah,
keep it simple, don't
yeah.
have to go out there and overthink the situation. I
No,
mean, like you said, factory presets, the machine's already powerful. I mean, there's nothing wrong
correct.
with that, is there?
No, that's right. And that's what I intentionally tried to do, is just keep it simple. Like Guy said, someone new to detecting that wants to pick up a manticore, they might not know all tone breaks and all different things that you can do with that machine. They might just want to turn it on, use a few settings and go. And if it was getting a bit hot or a bit noisy, I'd just back the sensitivity off, pretty
Mm.
much gone. And that's all I did. So, and the results, well, they pretty much speak for themselves. So,
And
yeah,
that's a
fantastic.
really good point for the newbies out there that have just bought a Manticore, might be their first detector or 10th, who
That's right.
knows? But, learn it first in factory preset before you start mucking around with things.
Yeah,
Um,
correct.
That can really confuse you if you start, like you're saying, playing with this, that, and then you're like, oh, I don't know how it is. And then it starts maybe even doing negative effect because it's too noisy or
That's right, yeah.
not
And as
stable.
they go along, there's plenty of other YouTube videos out there with all different settings for the Manticore, and using different coils and that sort of thing. So as
Yeah.
they progress with that machine, and they're learning it a little bit more, then perhaps they can get on there and start mucking around with it.
Mm,
And I suggest that you do that. But for
mm.
this particular test, that's I just try to keep it simple,
Yep.
and yeah, smashed it.
How about you, Guy? As far as settings, you might have some special stuff that you can sprinkle over the top of the detector before you start,
He's
and
not going to tell you.
that's right. That's right. He's gonna mouth it and press mute and go,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right.
what was that?
Yeah.
Come on, guys, spill the
Well, well,
beans.
well, well. I can. It is called the myth tech, but I'll give you one myth, and that is all these different settings that people put out. and send around and saying, "Oh, you have to have this and you have to have that and you have to have that." It's not. So the only small and so what I've basically done is change the audio profile of that to suit my ears.
Right.
Apart from that, very, very similar to how Paul's got his set up. So all terrain general, you can notch the recovery speed down maybe one from the default, but be careful. Don't just think, oh, I've got a big coil, it goes deeper. I'll just drop that recovery speed and I'll be able to dig targets at 3 foot. It doesn't work like that because it
No.
inhibits other parts of the strengths of the
Mm,
machine. So,
good point.
as I said previously in one of the other tech talks with the MythTech, is that there's so much engineering and testing goes into these standard defaults for the machine. If you and I know MindLab's just put out a few videos about it. If
Mm,
you go too far out from that, I will almost guarantee you that you won't get the performance out of the machine.
Mm.
yeah.
So that's my sort of number one advice. Probably the one thing that I do is with the noise cancel. So some people just noise cancel at once. So one of the great things that the Manticore has is this rolling noise cancel, especially when you're in sort of more urban areas, is to
Mm.
hold that button down to at least get a consistent number for at least 5 seconds, and that you'll find that the coil will run a lot more stable
So what do you do? You
using
hold the
that.
button instead of a press, your single press, you hold it down.
Yep, yep.
Cool. I'm learning something too here, viewers. So, I've run the coil a bit, but these guys I'm listening to very much so. So I'm taking some notes.
Yeah, and Trev, another thing too. I don't know if guys seen this, but there was a couple of videos I've seen on YouTube where the recovery speed was at one, and they did a few tests, and they had the recovery speed really, like at the lowest, and it was actually missing targets.
Right.
So they say at least run it around 3 or 4. So I was surprised that, because I know a couple of guys that run it at 1 or 2. So I don't know. Are they missing targets?
Mm.
I'm not really sure, but
Well,
yeah,
look, just remember, viewers, that everyone has a choice.
that's right.
These are just suggestions, and this is how
Suggestions.
they run them, and with some advice where you can. But you have a choice of where you run these things with sensitivity and recovery speeds and settings and things, and do what suits you out there. Make sure that you feel comfortable with the machine, and because the last thing you want is to go to an area and you're second guessing your equipment, how you're feeling, the fatigue. All of a sudden, you're starting to overthink things and you're not concentrating on these subtle signals that'll mean a nice, deep gold sovereign or target or whatever it may be compared to, frustrations. So just
That's
remember that they are suggestions out there. Um,
Yeah. Trevor, and the other thing that especially using the bigger coil that I notice helps a lot. So when you're pinpointing, um, don't just necessarily just do the sort of 90 degrees. So you'll probably see in my videos a couple of them. I sort of make a circular motion, which actually around where I think the target is, to
mm,
get that sort of that end point, which is a little bit different to what when you're using some of the smaller coils. And then you can actually hit the pinpoint function on the Manticore.
yeah.
And at this stage, I haven't gone through a coin. So yeah, so that's the other thing that people say, oh, it's a bigger coil. How do you pinpoint and all that kind of stuff? Well,
Well, yeah,
there's
yeah.
a really, really good tip for people out there when you do get your MythTech 18, is to not just go sort of in that sort of the perpendicular sort of that way, but actually just sort of circular around it, and that'll help you actually pinpoint it, and then just use a pinpointer on the Manticore.
And then press the pinpoint button for that central point. And do you find when you press the pinpoint button, it's center to the coil?
Yes, most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's again, this is one of the tests that I do to make sure that how the center point or the sweet spot of the coil is actually in the center as well, because that's a critical aspect of the machine.
Yeah. Yeah, very important that that works as it should do, because we don't want people sort of trying to dig here and it's recognizing over there. So the center of that coil, when you press pinpoint after you've done whatever technique you do, and like Guy's saying, that circular motion can help. Give it a try. Press that pinpoint button and you're right on top of it.
Yeah, and there's another little technique, Trevor, too, where you can sort of get the coil. Hang on, where are we? And just roll off the target a little bit, and it disappears. And as you come back on it,
Yeah.
you pick that target up, and a lot of the times you find it's just in front of your coil.
Yes.
So just roll off your target, and when you don't hear it again, you can come back on it, and it gives you, and obviously you use your pinpoint also, but that's another good way that I've learned to pinpoint over the years, and don't always get it right, but it's a good little tip to try and help you recover that target a bit easier and that sort of thing. So.
I think,
and the other one, Trev, is that sometimes you get broader or larger targets. You may have a powder flask or something like that.
Yeah.
So the other part about that is to assist it, especially if it's a relatively shallow, is just because it'll be a big broad signal and it makes the pinpointing difficult, is just to lift the coil up a little bit, and that just helps with that pinpointing as well.
That's
But
a really
that's more
good
for the
point because
for the
go
broader
on.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's more for the bigger, broader
Yes.
ones that we get. So
Yeah, that's right. The bigger and broader the target, the larger the target, especially if it's closer to the coil, it'll sort of saturate it all over, and it can really give you a bit of. Sometimes with coils, you can get triple signals. When the coin's really close to the surface, it'll sort of beep under here and then here, because you've actually got windings that are all through this coil from the external perimeter through to this crossover in the middle. So just backing that coil off the ground a little bit just to relocate and reset yourself. And then, if you're finding it's a little bit jumpy, come from a different angle, try a bit of clear ground, reset yourself, reset your hearing, and then come back up on it again to see if you can really get it. And if in doubt, try and have a scrape, dig it out. That's,
That's right.
Those few inches down closer will mean whether that target's going to jump out or not. So
yeah, and just like anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So, after a while, you don't even really think about it. You just, you know where your plug is.
yeah.
9 times out of 10, there's your target. So you do get better at it as well. So
Yeah,
stick at it. Yeah.
pinpointing, like you said, both of you, people get a little bit shied away from big coils because how am I going to pinpoint all of that? And you said the target separation's been pretty good with this coil. So trust the ability in the coil and the machine and yourself. And, hopefully that'll mean that you'll get a few more targets. Is there any other setting type or anything that you'd use, sand or beach? Would you swap those settings around when you're in those locations too? And any changes there, Paul?
Yeah. Well, I had that short time on the beach with the coil, and I'm keen to get back actually because I love beach detecting. But I just started out in beach general, and then I found myself. I went to low conductors, and then I went to beach deep. And they're all fairly different. So, and I sort of just trying, to go from one to the other and have a little bit of a play around there on the beach for the different settings. But that's what you have to do with a machine like this. Yeah. Use different things, trial out different things in different scenarios, and not one spot's going to be the same as the next spot. Where I detected that day, there was a massive storm, so there was a big cutout in the sand, and a lot of the targets were pretty much exposed. So each different scenario is going to be, a little bit different from the next. So just play around with it, and that's all I can really,
Yeah, good point. Good point. How about you, Guy? Any other setting requirements that people need? We do design it as a plug and play, but if you were going to the beach, would you certainly look at changing those settings?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I think the beaches are quite a different beast, if you like, compared to when we're out in sort of the gold fields. And I think one of the other important thing is that it's also, I've used it in highly mineralized ground as well, so it still has the capability to work through that. and also to get that depth. So yeah, it's one of those things where yeah, it is horses for courses, and because of that saltwater interface, you have to use those modes. Not necessarily have to, but it's preferable to use those modes to get the best out of the manticore.
Mm,
But going back to some of the the difference between a park and also out in the gold fields,
mm,
I've noticed I haven't had to change too much on the settings to
mm.
still ensure that I get that performance.
And talking about the Goldfields guy with the 18-inch Knox, you actually found a nice nugget with the 18, I recall. With the Myth Tech, as far as getting out on the goldfields and using this in gold mode or going for gold for this, there'll be people out there, especially in Victoria, Australia, that may want to use this around trashy goldfield areas. Can they still expect to see the gold nuggets if they're there?
Oh, most definitely. Because yeah, I mean, I always say to people, they go, "Oh, well, you can't find gold nuggets," but half sovereigns and things like that only weigh about 4 grams. So yeah, no, you can definitely find them, and one of the interesting parts is that you still find, and Paul agree with this as well, is that you're still finding small bits of lead and small bits of this that could quite easily be gold nuggets. So,
Mm,
would I recommend go gold hunting with the Manticore with an 18-inch? There's other better ways of actually finding gold,
yep.
to be honest. But yeah, I've been very very lucky with both the CTX and a Knox finding gold nuggets in goldfields because
Mm.
there's
Well, you're
there was a
using
lot
it
of
there.
running.
You've taken it there and you've
Yeah,
turned it on and you're using it there. So,
yeah, and
that's
again,
good.
it's not necessarily a specific test. I don't sit out there and put a point 1 and a point 5 and a 1 gram and a
Mm.
2 gram and all that kind of stuff because it's not what the Manticle's set up for.
Yeah.
So if you go over a decent piece of gold, even at depth, then you will find it.
Yeah. No, very good. And, another thing that I wanted to just touch on is, why we make different coils and different sizes for machines and why there are so many out there for different models as well. And, really for you, Paul, like why would you go and buy an 18-inch Mistec? If you were using a Manticore, why would you use different coils and why would you choose an 18-inch Mistec?
Yeah, sure. Well, a lot of the times, well, probably 98% of the times, me and Mick, we always tend to go out together.
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes what we'll do, we might have 50-acre parcel of land, private permission that we're detecting. We'll split up and take the two ways, and I'll look for noisy ground specifically with the bigger coil.
Yeah.
Because as you know, 50 acres is a hell of
It's
a
a
lot of.
fair, decent swing.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm.
And it's fantastic for finding the noises. That's always, sometimes we're not even after a good target, we're just after the iron in the ground or just some indication that there was, previous life there, I guess,
Yeah.
and the noisy
Mm.
ground. And Mick might break out the little 10x5 for the Equinox 800,
Mm.
or, just a smaller coil for that situation. But yeah, it's a great tool just for covering ground and
Mm.
finding noisy areas. So we do it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Except
right.
once he went that way and I went that way, and he got 3 gold sovereigns. So
Oh, I should have gone the other way at Albuquerque, hey?
always
Should have
happens.
made that left turn. Damn
That
it.
left turn at Albuquerque.
Yeah. What about you, Guy? Like, why would you buy a different coil and especially an 18-inch Mistec for your Manticore? You've just bought it, you've using the 11, what would entice you to buy a coil like this?
Yeah, well, a little bit like Paul and Mick, a lot of the areas and permissions that I go to are on large acreage, and well, I'd love to be retired. I'm not, so I only have a certain amount of time. So it's great to actually get a bigger coil, get an idea of all the area and Paul, that's one of the biggest tips, especially when you're out on some of the earlier sites. you want it to be noisy,
Yeah.
because if it's not noisy, it usually means that you're just on pasture and there's nothing there. So
So noisy, you
so
mean
yeah,
lots
that
of targets? Like,
yeah. Well, the machine will become noisy. It will start grunting. It's usually because the soil's particularly been turned over. It's probably got, deep decomposed iron that's, rusted away over the last 150 years and all that kind of stuff. So that's
okay, yeah.
what you look for, and that's when you start slowing down. And I've been out with Paul and Mick a few times, and yeah, we just go over areas, and yeah, we've done some paddocks and not heard a thing, and then we go into other paddocks. It's just noisy as hell, and we
Mm.
just we slow down, and yeah, we usually do pretty well in those paddocks.
That's brilliant. Yeah, brilliant advice there. So one thing for us that we exist because we can make aftermarket coils, and we know that each coil does something different on the ground. There's no way that anyone can tell me in my many years of experience, and I'm sure you gentlemen would say as well, that one coil will do everything. People have their favorites, there's no doubt about it. But each coil is putting out a different magnetic field and is looking for at a different window of target. So it's a bit like your golfer out there. They're not going to go out onto a big golf course with one club in their bag. They're going to use a different club for a specific reason, and they may not use every club in their bag each time they go out. But at some point, they'll go, "I need that."
Correct.
So by having a different coil and a different choice going over the same ground or new ground, it'll really give you the opportunity to find more targets. And ultimately, that's what you guys do it for, I'm sure. You're after that elusive gold sovereign or the rare medallion and the rare cricket buckle, or over in the UK, our friends are looking for staters and rare coins and buried treasure. We sell a lot of these through the Middle East as well, into some of those regions where there's old Persian Empire treasures and things like that. So, um, you
Oh,
know, using different coils on the same machine and on the same ground is really going to be beneficial. So, don't shy away from getting another coil out there, especially if it's a Coiltek.
correct.
So really, that's a bit of a wrap up for what we're going to talk about in this 3 episode Myth Tech Talk, Tech Talk. So hopefully the viewers got a fair bit out of it. Paul, can you give us a bit of a rundown about what you guys do and your YouTube channel and that?
Yeah, sure. Me and Mick, well, Mick's actually a bottle collector, and he's been bottle digging for 40 plus years. And actually,
Ooh,
they
wow.
metal detect to find noisy grounds to give them indication where the bottles were. So
Oh,
that's how Mick sort
fantastic.
of got into metal detecting, and I'm a bit the same. When I was a young kid, Dad used to come to the gold fields, and that was back in the 70s. So that's
Yeah,
showing
wow.
my age a bit. But yeah, so I think I've been doing the coin and relic stuff series for about 10 years. And I've learned a lot over that time. And where we
Still
are in the
learning.
north, yeah, and we're in the North Victoria, so there was a lot of activity here. They were chasing the gold, so there was communities that were camping up and down the creeks and in the paddocks, and we're fairly blessed with a lot of good areas actually. So if you're nice enough to the farmer and he lets you on, it's fantastic, especially when you found a new
Mm,
paddock.
yeah.
And it's just the thrill of the chase, I suppose. I used to do a lot of fishing, but now I find myself doing a lot of dirt fishing, I
Dirt
call it. So
fishing. Yeah.
yeah, so and it does get addictive, but it's a great hobby. You can do it by yourself. You can do it with some friends.
Yeah.
You can do it at night time. You can do, it's endless really, and you can
Mm,
hit the beach. A lot of people, do it underwater diving, and there's a fantastic community too. So I've met
it
great
is.
friends like Guy. I never knew Guy before I detected. Met him over at Wedderburn, and just yeah, the whole community, and it's just a fantastic hobby to get into and meet good
Absolutely.
people like yourself too, Trev.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and to you. And what about some of your adventures? How can they find that, Paul?
Yeah, well, we've got a YouTube channel. It's called Coiltek Tek Australia.
Coiltek Australia.
Hang on. Oh, this is all backwards.
It's back.
So,
That's right. You can
yeah.
see how savvy we are with all this stuff, you know.
Oh, we're pretty computer. Yeah, but that's on
Coiltek
YouTube.
Tek.
Coiltek Tek Australia, yeah, and also on Facebook there too. There's a little page that you can go and see. We upload some photos of different finds, but it's hard to always get out every week.
Yep.
Because we both work full time and that sort of thing, and life gets in the way. So we really try hard to get out as much as we can, but sometimes it's just not possible. But yeah.
Yeah, some really good content. We'll put the link down in the comments below for people to hit up your YouTube video and like and subscribe to ours and his. And Guy, talk about how can people find you and a little bit about you and your detecting escapades.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you can find me on the Gold Rush guys. So I do a bit of everything, a little bit like Paul's does a bit of gold as well. So yeah, I'll probably do I wouldn't say 50-50, it just depends on the season. But yeah, I love getting out into the bush. So there's two things. I love getting out in the bush. That's why I love going out for gold. But especially the coin and relics, I love the Australian history of the gold fields. So yeah, you'll find me sometimes in libraries and real sort of places like that.
Doing your research.
It's just research, and yeah, it's great. You know, Paul and I talk a lot about some of the areas up there, and share spots, and it's not only doing the research. You know, people like Mick and Paul are just amazing people that are very, very approachable, and they seem to get a lot of really, really good permissions on big areas, and big areas that have seen a lot of
Activity.
Australia's early history and sort of up in Ned Kelly country there. So
that's brilliant. Well, that's excellent, gentlemen. We really appreciate it. Like I said, everyone, we'll put the links to both of their YouTube channels and socials in the comments below. And, make sure that you can ask them any questions. They said they'd be happy if you've got any questions around that 18-inch MythTech or on any other Coiltek products or whatever they do. They'll tell you as much as they can without breaching any confidentiality. Obviously, they do their research, they get their permissions, they treat their farmers really well. And the areas that they go to, they look after to make sure that there's no issues with dig holes. They leave it as well as they found it, if not better. So we encourage everyone to detect very well and stay healthy and safe out there. We really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me, Paul and Guy.
Thank you, Trevor.
I feel a little bit like the Brady Bunch, sort of looking, he's with him and he's with him.
Over there.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, no, really appreciate it. Thank you for taking some time this evening with me and having some great insight for all the viewers.
No, that was great. And just one other thing, I want to thank you, Trev, for giving me the opportunity to test the MythTech coil. Has been fantastic, and I hope everything goes well on release date.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We really appreciate that for sure. And Guy, thank you. We'll look forward to more episodes from both of you coming out soon. In the meantime, people, you can hit us up through our socials as well, coiltek.com.au website. You can contact us direct. We're here to answer any questions. We really look forward to bringing this new MythTech coil out to the market and seeing what people find with it. I'm sure there'll be some great stories coming out. Keep an eye on our socials as well for latest discoveries. We will more than likely put one of these up to win. All you need to do is submit a story with a Coiltek coil, and if it's a good story with some good photos, you might be in the running for winning one. But in the meantime, we're going to sign off. Thank you for joining us on this Tech Talk. Paul,
thank you, Guy. Thank you, Trev.
Thank you very much. Good night, good evening, good day, and have a great time.